Well, hi. Hi. Welcome to my home. I am Michael Fremer. I'm a senior contributing editor at Stereophile magazine, and I would like to show you how I live and work. So come on in. I know you've seen some of the other reviewers' rooms, and some of them have really nice big rooms, and they're places where you'd actually want to hang out. That's not my room. My room is a work space. It's not a hangout space. So let's go in. I'll show you my my vintage Stratocaster. I guess that's part of what you have to do. You have to show your musical instruments. So I'll show you my vintage Stratocaster later, but not right now. Let's get to the important things, which is the audio gear, the records, the clutter, the mess. So come on in. So as you can see, I don't know how well this camera picks up what's on the side, but there's a lot of records here. There's actually, look, I have CDs. I can't believe it. He has CDs. There's actually 3 of these bolts racks. There's 2 of them in the garage, and one of them, these are the ones I like to keep indoors. The others I'm punishing by keeping them in the garage. So come on in. We have a lot of records, test pressings, records. So the reason why this is not a social setting is because there's a chair, and that's the chair that I sit in to listen. That's where I listen. There's another chair here where if I have to make room for somebody else, I'll clear off what's on the chair and then they can come sit here. Like if I have a manufacturer over to install a piece of equipment, I'll make some room. But basically, this is a workspace. You know, it's not like a hangout kind of space. So I'll show you my system, okay? So I know people want to see my system. So these are my loudspeakers. So I own these loudspeakers. I want to make clear, I will show you what I own and what I don't own. But I own these. These are the Wilson Alex speakers. I own these. Paid for them, okay? And then my amplifiers are the Dart Zeal amplifiers, which I own, which I paid. Well, the bank paid for it, and I paid the bank back over time, and I own those. And yes, they're costly amplifiers, and I love the way they sound, and they're beautiful, and the beauty of them is of course wasted in this space because it's not a beautiful space, but that's okay. I like looking at them too. I like listening to them and looking at them. Okay, so now you'll see I also have a lot of Ted Denny's gear, a lot of his stuff that people think is crazy, but I think it works. I hear it, and so I have that. I don't own that. That's on loan. And I don't own that. It's on loan. And the cables I use all of Tara Labs cables. I've had a lot of different brands of cables in here. I don't own my cables. I've had a lot of different brands of cable in here, and if it doesn't work in my system, I don't write about it because I think cable is to a certain degree system dependent. But the first time I had a piece of Tara Labs Zero brought into my system, I didn't know what it was. Someone brought it over and said, "You have to hear this cable." I said, "I don't want to hear cable. I've heard enough cable. I have enough cable around this house. I could build a suspension bridge. I have so much cable." And they said, "No, you have to hear this. Where do you think it'll make the most difference?" I said, "Put it between the phono preamplifier and the preamplifier." And I went into my office over here and did some work, and I said, you crawl back there and do it, and then I'll come out and listen. So first we played a track from the Royal Gala Ballet, very famous RCA. Played it. It sounded fantastic. I said, "Okay, it's going to sound better than that?" He said, "Let's see." He did the work. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the brand, didn't know how much it cost. I went into my office, I did some work, I came back out, I sat down, I played the same track. It was like, get out of here. It was like huge, bigger stage, more air, more open, more of everything. It was like, okay, that's amazing. How much is it? Oh, it's $18,000. It was like, well, that's ridiculous. But I was lucky enough that they were willing to let me hear the whole system with it, and that's what I use. I haven't paid for it. I'll admit that, okay? Ready to keep moving? And I always tell people, if you can send me a piece of cable that costs $900 that's going to sound as good as this stuff, I'll send this stuff back and keep the $900 cable. So far, that hasn't happened. I'm still waiting for it to happen, because these speaker cables, these big, thick hoses that you can see down here, they're like $30,000. You know, it's a lot of money. But I've seen how they make them, and if you see a cross section of these, it takes two guys about 2 weeks to make a pair of these. There's a lot of stuff in there, and they did send over a set of cables that they said were better than what I had before, and they weren't. They were much worse. So I'm not like deluding myself into thinking that whatever they send is going to be the greatest thing. And I even brought it down to Washington to a friend of mine down there who writes for another magazine and who has similar speakers, and we put them in his system, and they sounded bad also. So I called them and said, what's going on here? And they looked at what they sent me. They sent me the wrong cables for one reason or another, and I heard it. Okay, so I know what I'm hearing. Okay, let's look at the rest of my system. This is like the most vital part of my system. It's my turntable. This is the Continuum Audio Labs Caliburn, which I bought, it's like 11 years ago or more. It's my favorite material possession, and it's been trouble-free for 11 years, as well it should be, because of what it cost. Okay, I'm so happy with this turntable, you have no idea. So it's floating on a -K stand. You can see that it's completely isolated in 3 dimensions, or 5 degrees of ice. However you want to talk about it, it floats. Okay. Now, this is the Swedish Analog Technology tone arm. The arm that the table comes with is the Cobra arm, which was a very, very good arm. I got this to review, I guess 2 years ago. First record I played was like, oh my God, that's impossible. And then every record I played with that arm was, oh my God, it's impossible. And it was so much better than any arm I've ever heard in my life that I had to buy that too. And this arm sells for $30,000. It's a lot of money. I got a discount on it, but I still paid, you know, five digits worth of money. Okay, it's expensive, and it's so I reviewed it. When you review a piece of equipment that costs $30,000 and you tell people it's the best thing you ever heard, you better be right. You better not be messing around with people, because I know people will actually act on what I say, and because previously I've done that and I've turned out to be correct. So I wrote I wrote best tone arm in the world with a question mark, because I haven't heard every tone arm in the world, which is a good thing to do. And a bunch of people bought this arm and sent me emails saying, you're right, it's the best thing I've ever heard. I like when that happens. I don't like when the other thing happens, so I'm very careful not to say something is great when it's not so great. Okay? And then I have a Kuzma 4-point here, which is my secondary tone arm, which is another great tone arm. And I'm very happy that I own this. I bought this. I'm reviewing this Koetsu Mono Rosewood cartridge right now, so I won't talk about it. This is the Lyra Etna SL, which I've reviewed. And then here's a lot of setup junk over here, just the usual nonsense. My microscope, overhang gauge, other stuff. Here is my Dart Zeal preamp, which I also own, because the preamp and the amp go well together. So I own this preamp. And this is the CH Precision P1 phono preamp. And over here is the X1 power supply. And I reviewed this a couple of months ago, and I wrote, it's really great, I really like it, but I can't have it, I can't afford it. But you know what, when it was time to send it back, I couldn't send it back. So I sent them a check for it. Now you may say, I get these emails, or I get people on posts on these forums saying, well, how does Fremer get the money for that? Is his wife a trust fund baby? I mean, first of all, it's nobody's business where the money comes from, okay? But I pay for the stuff. And part of the money comes from my DVD. My DVD has sold almost 17,000 copies. I didn't make it to make money. I made it because I felt people should see how to set up a turntable on a video rather than read instructions. Because if you read instructions, it takes 4 lines to tell you how to do it, and then 5 hours later you still haven't done it, and you're saying I must be an idiot because it's 4 lines to read it, 2 minutes to read it, and 2 hours later I'm still a mess. But the fact is, if you see how it's done, it's much easier to do. So I made that DVD not to make money, but it's made me a lot of money. And I've put it back into my business, which is reviewing hi-fi equipment. Okay, so down here is my Ypsilon VPS 100 phono preamp, which I also own, which is a phenomenal phono preamp. It was the best. It is. These two are the best things I've heard. They're kind of yin yang. This is a solid state phono preamp. It doesn't sound analytical and bright. And this is a tube LCR phonostage that uses a lot of transformers and has a couple of vintage metal can tubes in there, and this doesn't sound really tubey. That's what I like about both of those. And that requires transformers, so I have transformers over here. You can't even see them, but they're Ypsilon transformers. And between these two, I've got the field covered. Okay, so now over here, right here, I have a look. What? It's the recording that John Atkinson engineered. Just happens to be there. Unbelievable. Now, I guess I can play this because, but anyway, I was listening to it. It's a wonderful recording. So this has got, I've got 3,305 CDs, high-resolution files, etc., on here. And when I feel like slumming it, I put on digital. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, and then I have an Audio Alchemy transport here. That is the upside-down Pioneer transport. I've had this for decades. Still works. It's fine. And this Moon, I don't own this Moon. You know, I was going to buy this Moon. This is the 780D. I was going to buy this. Then I heard MQA, and I said, I'm not ready to buy a DAC that doesn't have MQA. So now it's on hold. So I don't own this DAC. I admit it. And this is the power supply for this DAC. You don't really need the power. This power supply is really good enough. You don't need this. But I am going to be reviewing a phono preamp from Sim Moon that will benefit from this power supply. So for now, it's here. And then down below, I have a Lynx Hilo A to D and D to A converter I use to make recordings off of vinyl. And it's a really great studio piece. It's like $2,500. Works great. I own that. And then below that, I have a Niagara 7000 from Audio Quest. I don't own that. Nor did I own the Shinyata stuff that I had before, which I think is great stuff. I think this is better. Did that make them happy to read that? No, I don't blame them. They're not happy with me, but you know what? I'm not in this to make friends, in all honesty. I like making friends, but I'm in this to tell you what I hear and be as specific as I can. You know, there are some people that do this that like everybody. They love everybody. They love everything. Everything's wonderful. They shouldn't be critics. They should be publicists. You know, I try to tell you how things sound. And it doesn't matter if you like a certain kind of sound and I don't. If I tell you how it sounds and I don't go for it, it still might be something that you like, because audio is very personal, I think. Okay, so that's the Niagara 7000. And I outfitted this room with RPG diffusers and abfusers and absorbers. And those are these still point, I forgot what they call. Those are amazing things. Those, they look like just wooden frames with a piece of cloth on them, but those are like black holes that just suck up stuff and just make this space really, really non-existent. Now this looks like a small cluttered room. It's not that small really, it's just that it's full of stuff. But it works well. Everybody that comes down here who looks at it is very skeptical when they, and because the speakers are right against the wall. You know, it's like, well, how can you develop a sense of depth when the speakers are right against the wall? Well, guess what? That's got nothing to do with developing a sense of depth. That's where the speakers work best. If you sit down, if I could sit you down here in this chair and play your favorite record, you'd go, wow, because it's a wow experience. I wouldn't have spent the money if it wasn't a wow experience. So while this is a cluttered workspace, late at night, I can turn the lights out, play records, and really have as much fun, more fun now than I had 20 years ago, because the system is just so much better. Okay, so that's my system. Now I'll show you one other room we can walk into if you want to follow me. I'm about to review this if you want to see this. This record isn't out yet. I can write the review, but I can't publish it for... This is Cecile McLaurin Salvant. She's a wonderful, wonderful singer. This is her third record. It's a triple record set, recorded at the Village Vanguard. It's, to me, this is going to be a classic like Bill Evans Live at the Village Vanguard. This is so beautifully recorded because the people at this label, which is Mac Avenue, they know great sound. They're audiophiles, but this is not, quote-unquote, an audiophile recording. I mean, it's a great recording, but it's talent-based, not sound-based, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay? I'm about to start reviewing this SMC Audio AC Nexus power conditioner. I will say to you, that power conditioners make a big difference. AC power cords make a big... If you don't think they make a difference, take the cheap rubber ones that come in your equipment, and you're cheating yourself out of what your system can sound like. Now, if your piece of equipment costs $1,000, you're not going to spend $500 on a cable, I understand that. But if you've gone to the trouble and expense of setting up a really good system, you really owe it to yourself to find a way to replace all your AC power cords with really expensive ones. Like you can rent them or borrow them online, or pay for them and return them if you don't like them, and see what happens. I've done demos for the most skeptical amplifier manufacturers who say, my amplifier has a power supply, the proper power supply, it can't possibly make a difference. I say, all right, sit down, we'll play some music, it sounds great, now I'm going to replace the power cords. Well, it's gone. How'd that happen? I said, I'm telling you, for whatever reason, it makes a difference. Everything makes a difference. And yes, I have dedicated lines for one dedicated line. It used to be, you know, there was a thing in this business. Well, you need a different line for your front-end equipment and a different line for your amplifiers, which, of course, is a really stupid idea because then you're setting up a ground plane differential and you get noise. Everything should be on one line. So I'll show you, come on in here. This is my utility room, granted. You know, it's not, but it's important because I've set up a whole nother rack here. This is a still point rack, which I bought. I own this. And it's a very, very good rack. How good is it compared to my... Oh, I didn't mention my rack. I didn't mention my racks in here. How dare I? Michael Latvis is going to be upset. So this is the HRS rack system. This is their SXR midline system, which I bought, I own. And it's very, very effective. And, you know, for those of you who don't think that racks can make a difference in sound, I recommended these to Roy Halley. You may know Roy Halley. He engineered Graceland, Paul Simon's latest record, Stranger to Stranger, some Bob Dylan, all the Simon and Garfunkel great records. He's a really great engineer, a really great listener, and I recommended this rack to him, and he bought one, set up his system on it, and he emailed me and said, Michael, I can't believe what a difference that makes. And it does. Everything makes a difference. So, okay, let's come in here now. How does the still point rack compare to the HRS rack? I can't tell you. There's no way I can compare one to the other. This is sitting on a concrete slab. That's sitting on a concrete slab but on carpeting. And I just can't move this into there and move that into here. I don't know. But this is also a very good rack. I'm reviewing the Riga RP10 right now with the Effetta 2 cartridge. Right now I'm running Channel Island Audio phono preamplifier, which is really nicely made in America for $1,000. Can't tell you what it sounds like because that'll be in the review. And we got more records in here. As you can see, we have this is my subwoofer over here. Oh no, that's my hot water tank. So I have a lot of records in here, and we'll go through some records in a bit. And I'm running out of room for records. It's sad, but that's what's happening. Just running out. And then over here we have more records, more boxes. I have the Vinyl Cleaner Pro from Audio Desk, and I also have the Loricraft, which is the thread type of machine, which I do use. I don't like to put dirty records in the vinyl cleaner, in the Audio Desk, because you're using the same fluid to clean 100 records. So it's really stupid to put a really dirty record in there. So what I do is, for a dirty record, I'll clean first on the Loricraft to get it clean, and then I'll give it a final spin through the Audio Desk. And that I think that a cavitation is a miraculous invention to use for cleaning records. It makes such a huge difference, no doubt about it. Okay, so that's my system. Here's a wall of cables. Could build a suspension bridge with these cables. I keep them around for different reasons. Those are the Bay Yamamura, the last great cables that Bay Yamamura made. And, I had heard Bay Yamamura died, but he didn't. He's alive. And so when I was at the show in Munich 2 years ago, and someone said, oh, Bay Yamamura's over there, I almost fell on the floor. I said, I thought he's dead. I went over to him. I was so happy to see him. He's like a really great guy and one of the real innovators on the wacky side of this business. All right, so why don't we come over here? There's another room in here. This is my office, which we can look at if you'd like. It's a real mess right now, so maybe we won't look at it too carefully. Maybe we'll edit out the office, but I'll show you. So there's a wall of books, because I do read. I know people don't think I read, but I do read. And all stereophiles from going way back. And these cabinets were made by Jeff Catalano from High Water Audio, who's not only is he a music lover, of an unparalleled music lover, but he's a great carpenter as well. And he was nice enough to build these cabinets for me. And in exchange, I promised him a good review of anything he happens to sell. No, I didn't do that, but I paid him for it. So over here are some signed Jim Marshall prints that you might enjoy looking at. Jimmy, Miles Davis, The Boxer Shot, Johnny Cash Giving the Finger, Pensive John Coltrane, and Thelonious Monk among my favorites.
And then over here is Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. This is when Sony set up a hybrid Super Audio CD line in their Terre Haute, Indiana plant. Remember that? And they invited a bunch of us over there to see that, and they gave us this plaque. And then I think a year later they shut it down. They were stupid. I don't know what they were thinking.
There's more records here, and there's more records here. I have all of my British Decas. Like I happen to have 3 copies of Le Fil Mal Gardie. This is a very, very famous Decca. And the best pressing of this that I have, I bought for £1 in Britain at Rough Trade Records. If you go to a hard rock kind of record store and there's a classical section, the chances are good there'll be something really great there for £1 because they have no idea what those records are. So that was kind of a cool thing. So these are all... this is a Nimbus directed disc Beethoven Sonata set. This is volume 1. John Atkinson has volume 2, and that son of a bitch won't give me volume 2. Yeah, I'm certainly not giving him volume 1. Let's see what else we got here. We got this Porgy and Bess. This is one of the great. This is a Kenneth Wilkinson recording. This is one of the greatest sounding Decas, one of the greatest sounding records that I have. I had some Russian engineers that I met at Stereo Exchange back when I did a turntable setup seminar, and they came in and they watched, and one of them said, "We don't have records, we don't like vinyl, we wanted to see what you do, but the record said there's no good, CD is better." I said, "Why don't you guys come on over to my place, come on over, we'll do some comparisons, whatever you want to hear." He goes, "All right, we'll come." So both of them came, they brought one of their CDs, they brought a test CD and a sampler CD, and they did their tests, and they go, "The system's good, great sounding system, good, measure good, sound good. Play some music." So I played them this. They were like, "That's record? Record can't sound that way. It's impossible. How can that be a record?" I said, It does. That's how." And I played a bunch of more records to them, and they were just flabbergasted because they didn't believe that a record could sound that way. He said, "Can you get this on CD?" I said, "You can get a CD. It's not going to sound. It's not even going to be close to this." He goes, "We'll get CD." A few weeks later, I get a call. "You're right, got CD, no good, doesn't sound close to that. Why is that?" I said, "I don't know. I know that it is, though. I know that it is." So, it's a funny story. So, there's a lot of great records in here. A lot of. This is one of these. This is one of the 2 legendary RCA. This is the stereo for the joy of it. This is the popular one. It's got Xavier Cugat, Ames Brothers, Bang Broom and Harp. Anyway, I never play these. It's just a fun thing to have. I'll probably sell it at some point. What else is here? All my British Decas are here. All these fantastic records that I do play. I do play these all the time because they're just wonderful sounding records. And you know what really bothers people? Say, "Oh, you listen to classical music? I thought you were a rock and roll guy." I listen to every kind of music, and I like all of it. I grew up with classical music. I had a subscription to the symphony for 10 years, the New York Philharmonic. So, what else can I show you here? All right, nothing else here. Let's come out here. I'll show you a couple of cool records. I tell my wife, you should come down here. I want to show you stuff in my record collection, because if I drop dead before you, I don't think it's going to happen, actually. But if it did, you should know some of these records, because, like, here's... So these are all original British Beatle albums in here. These are all the originals. So here's an original Rubber Soul, and Best Wishes to Michael, George Martin. So George Martin signed this for me. You know, this is going to be worth some money, but if she doesn't know about it, it'll just... In fact, if she doesn't know what all these records are worth, who knows what's going to happen. I once went to a garage sale, and I said, any records? And the guy said no. And another guy at the garage sale said, if you go down the block, there's a garage sale. It's all records, and that's all that's there. So I said, I'm going. So I went. It was like this room, but it was all records. It was packed, and there were people walking up the stairs like they spit drooling from their mouths, like, look what I have! Oh my God! And I went down into this room, and it was whatever you pulled, you would take. There was a copy of Billie Holiday, Lady Satin, whatever it's called, the one on Columbia where her voice wasn't so great. A sealed copy that people were walking on it. I took that. I have it over there. And I walked out with a stack of records, and then I put it in my car and went back and got more. And the next time I went back, there was a guy sitting there who had a stroke. He was like, and he's sitting there with one of those walkers with the rubber feet on it, and he's going, and his wife is going, yes, dear, it's wonderful. We're getting $1 a record. It's wonderful. And he's going, I told my wife, don't ever let that happen to you. Don't. You have to know what this stuff is worth. So let's see what else. I'll show you some other cool records. So I mean, these are all cool records. It's all original British Beatle albums. The whole set. These are all my imports. My records are arranged by a number of different ways. So all my English imports are in one, or all my imports, whether it's from England or France or they go through about here. And then it's American records, and the rest of my records are arranged by race. No, I'm just kidding. So some of my prized possessions, I'll show you some of my prized record possessions. All of the original British Kinks albums, all of them. I have all of them. And I'll tell you something else. So some of these I bought when they were new, like Lola. This has the original Lola, where he sings Coca-Cola, not Cherry Cola, when they sued him, made him change it. And original Arthur, original Village Green, and this one, let's see, one's mono and one's stereo. And I'll tell you where these came from. A lot of these I bought new, and some I bought at a store in California. When I walked into the store in California on the way up to RTI Records, actually, and I went through the entire store. There was not one record that I would have bought. None. It was a bust. But as I'm walking out, a guy comes in and drops a load of records on a shelf, and I start looking through them, and there's a copy of Arthur, mint. I bought a whole bunch of Kinks records. This one, this is the mono one. This is the stereo Village Green, and when I interviewed Ray Davis, because it's Davis, he signed it for me. That's really cool. And some of these came from Stereophile's late writer, Rick Rosen, which some of you know Rick Rosen, great guy, record collector, fanatic. And I had gone record shopping with him numerous times, and we bought a lot of records, and including a lot of these Kinks records. And when he passed away, which, boy, when that happens, and he was like 39 years old, you tell yourself, have fun. Don't mess around with the time you got. I helped his family sell all the records. I spent a week there organizing his records and separating them out in a way that I thought would make sense to record dealers, so that it wasn't $1 a record. I put them together in a way where I could bring a record dealer over and say, here's all the great jazz records. I know what they're worth. You know what they're worth. What are you going to give me? And I was able to get a good deal of money for the family. And in exchange for my week, I took some valuable records, but way less than what my time would have been worth. But I was happy to do that for them. Here's another interesting record you might like to see. This is a white label, white jacket copy of Paul McCartney's Flaming Pie. So Flaming Pie never came out in America on vinyl. I have the British version up there, but it was mastered by my friend Greg Calby at Sterling Sound, and this was in the 90s, and he called me and he said, listen, Paul wants to release on vinyl in America, he wants to press 100 copies of Flaming Pie in a white jacket with a white label, just 100 copies that he wants to sign individually to each of 100 of his friends. And where would you press that record? And I said, at that point in time, the best pressing plant in the country and one of the best in the world is RTI. It's in Camarillo, California. He says, well, that might be a problem for Paul because he's kind of paranoid about bootlegs. So Would you be willing to fly with the lacquer to Camarillo, watch it being plated, watch it being pressed, press 100 copies, and then destroy the metal parts? I said, absolutely, and I'm an honest person. I will press 100, and I will destroy the metal parts. He said, send me your resume. So I sent my resume is pretty damn good, okay? I sent my resume to Paul McCartney's people. I didn't pass muster. And I'm trying to think, why would it be? Maybe it's because I'm a record collector and they figured, okay, this guy, if he's a record collector, how could he resist the temptation to not press a few extra for himself and maybe a few friends? So I didn't do it. So they sent over somebody else, and it got done. So a couple of weeks later, I get a box in my front of my house. I open it up, and it's a copy of Flaming Pie with a note inside saying, I won't say where it came from, but I have 2 of them. So these are very rare and probably worth a lot of money. I don't know. I'd have to prove that it is what I say it is, but it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. So that's that. So you want to see some more stuff? So I'll show you some more stuff. So here's Queen's first album. This is the original British pressing of their first album. This was sent to me by Elektra Records because I cut the national radio commercials for the first 3 Queen albums, and for a lot of, I did Jackson Browne, I did a whole bunch of people. So one day I am sitting in my house. This is in the mid 70s, and an airmail letter shows up, and this is what airmail letters used to look like, and a little thin because they wanted to keep the cost down. From the Hotel Bel Air, although it was actually erased, and it's from 10 Queensgate, London, which I don't think is where Brian May lives anymore, but this is a handwritten letter from Brian May from Queen. And it says, Dear Michael, I have just found your address in a pile of papers and now seize the opportunity to write to you. I wrote you a card in America soon after I got a copy of your Queen promo tape, but I didn't have your address, and I forgot to get it from the promo guy. So I'm giving you this one. Anyway, what I wanted to say is thank you for the sheer heart attack tape. You seem to be the only bloke who can really get these things together. In fact, we think your edits are more interesting than ours. Now, how cool is that? I mean, how awesome is that? And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. And then at the end, he says, anyway, keep up the good stuff. I hope to see you next time, wherever that is, in Boston. Thanks again, Brian May. And he puts in parentheses, Queen, like you're not supposed to know who it is. So that's a cool thing. So someone's going to get that, and it could be you. But unfortunately, the jacket got kind of ruined because my pet Kawadi Mundi peed on it. It's a whole nother story, long story. All right, so let me put this. If I got to put it back where it belongs, because if I don't, I might not see it for 4 years. So wait a second. Q. There we go. All right, so other cool record. This is the original Metal One Box Public Image Limited. There's just lots of great records in there. One of the things I tell young people, they go, I stream my music. I stream too. I get up in the morning, I stream for quite a while. No, I stream too to find music I want to buy. And I tell young people, if you stream all your music now, and you're not paying anything for it, that's true, you're getting it for nothing. But you're going to have nothing. In 30 or 40 years, the music that's really important to you, you're not going to have it. I have here, all these memories. I can pull out any record here and tell you about it, where I got it from, what I was doing. Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde, whatever record I pull out here. I know where I bought it. I know what I was doing. I know who I was dating. I know so much stuff. And it's just to put one on, to take a record out that you haven't played, say, in 20 years. And when you pull it out and you look at it, like, okay, here's David and David Boomtown. Here's Bobby Darin at the Copa. Whatever. You pull it out and it means something to you. And then you take it out and you play it. And it means something else to you. And it sounds fantastic. And as I've proven over and over again, records do not wear out. If you take care of them, they will outlive you and they will sound as good as new. In fact, often they sound better than the reissues from the tape that's degraded over 40 years because the record hasn't degraded. I'll show you 2 other things, so come over here This is a poster for the animated film that I co-wrote, Animal Olympics, which you can watch this on YouTube. It's on YouTube, and it's got fans all around the world, and the people that did it don't care that it's up on YouTube. The voices were Billy Crystal, Gilda Radner, Harry Shearer, and me. And now they've all drifted off into obscurity, and I'm a big star. Okay? So it's a fun movie. You probably enjoyed it. I wrote it as well. And it happens to be a favorite of the furry people. You know the furry people? Those are the people that kind of dress up in full-sized animal outfits, and they have these conventions, and they get together, and the groundhog will look at the beaver and go, you're kind of hot. Why don't we go up in a room and do stuff? Never taking their costumes off. And this is one of their favorite movies, as I found out a couple of years ago when I got invited to be the guest of honor. I mean, this is a weird life, okay? I got invited to be the guest of honor at their convention. And the guy says, this movie to us is like the Rocky Horror Picture Show is for a lot of other people. Would you be the guest of honor? I didn't know what the furry people were at that point, but I looked them up and I called them back. I said, I don't think so, because where is this anyway? He said, it's going to be in California. I said, I live in New Jersey. I'm not going to come out just for this. He says, well, if you happen to be in Irvine, California at the end of May, I said, I will be in Irvine, California at the end of May. That's the show in Irvine, California at the Hilton. And this is at the Marriott, the next hotel over. I said, I'll be there. So I went. So the first disturbing thing was the line to get into the Furry People Convention was much larger than the line to get into the Hi-Fi show. Very disturbing. But I went up on the stage and I got introduced, and they all knew who I was, and which was amazing. And I was with a woman she was in full costume, but she was a very famous costume designer in Hollywood. And I went in a suit. I wasn't getting dressed up. And then that night they showed Animal Olympics, and I went and had to answer questions for like an hour or half an hour. And they asked me things about this movie that I haven't thought about in 30 years, and it was pretty amazing. And then they ran it, and I watched the people laughing and having a great time, and it was a great experience. So it all ties in. So thank you for coming to my home and seeing my listening room, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. That's horrible.